Welcome. I'm the Deadwood Jedi, and you are watching part 2 here because you are interested in the champion balance. And so I'm going to cover all those champions right now. I'm going to cover the epics right here, and then I'm going to cover the legendaries in the last part. So if you are checking this out, please take the time, subscribe to the channel, like the channel. It's a great way to support me. It's a great way to support the website, which I know so many of you love to use. And I'm really happy to provide. But let's go ahead and I will show you the champions. Alright guys, we have a ton of champions to go through. So I'm going to go through the epics. I'm going to go through them one by one. And we're going to talk about them. I'm going to be pretty quick about it because there's a lot of them. Alright, so first on the list is Madame Saris. Now the big change for Madame Saris is they're changing her A2 ability, or I'm sorry, A3 ability. It is going from a 3-turn cooldown. It's going to be reduced to a 2-turn cooldown. That is basically not a nerf. It's basically no change at all. So since you use it for arena, if you go more than 3 turns, you're already doing something probably pretty wrong. You're facing a pretty tough opponent as it is. I wouldn't worry about it. I don't think that's much of a nerf at all. In fact, that I would personally do a heck of a lot more. I'd probably take that down to a 1-turn cooldown, and then I think she would be more balanced with the rest of the game. But as it is, they didn't do much, and that's okay. Okay, guys, the next champion we're going to look at is Alika. Alika has a very small change. Attacks all enemy, 75% chance of increasing the cooldowns of all enemy skills by 1 turn, and the cooldown is reduced to 4. Now, that's a fairly significant change. But Alika still has many issues, not least of which is her skills. This isn't really going to change things. So 35% chance of increasing the cooldown. That gets bumped up to 75%, booked up to 100%. That's actually really good. And the cooldown is reduced from 6 turns to 4 turns. That's also really good. Those are pretty big buffs for this ability. The biggest issue is you can see all of these freaking books here. All of these freaking books and all of these freaking books. It just takes too many books to make her viable. When you have to put in 20 books into one champion, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So that's the big thing. That said, I think this is a good change for her, for sure. But I don't know that it's enough to make her usable in the game. Alright guys, the next champion we're going to go over is Azure. Azure has a couple pretty big changes. First, A1 is going to increase the hit to chance. Has a chance of 30% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn, increased to 100% chance if the target has an increased speed buff. And the coup de grace seals 50% of the target's turn meter if they're not under stun debuff. Those are the changes. What does that mean? It means that this A1 goes from placing a stun debuff only if they have an increased speed buff. Like, what? Now he has a 30% chance of placing a stun debuff regardless, 100% chance if they have the increased speed. That's a solid move for sure. And then the coup de grace, the A3, that extra chance for the stun debuff. This is all pretty much the same, but in addition, will also steal 50% of the target's turn meter if they're not under a stun debuff. That makes that skill usable even if the debuffs aren't landing. That's important so that the skills are always viable. So those are 2 strong abilities for this champion. Obviously, still has some limitations. This Aegis is still extremely strong. This is an attack-based skill. This is an attack and HP-based skill. I don't know why you would do that. And for an attack champion, he has a very low base attack. So all in all, definitely a strong improvement, especially for someone that I think you can agree would be a more support champion and a crowd control champion. But I don't know that it's quite strong enough to make him very viable in a lot of the game. Probably still decent in dungeons. Okay, guys, the next champion we're going to go over is Bushy. Bushy is Deadly Edge. Basically puts a 30% increased crit rate and speed buff on this champion for 3 turns. This is going to be for one of his skills. He's got 2 skills, really. It's going to be for this Deadly Edge skill, the A2 here. That's actually a pretty strong buff. Increased crit rate and increased speed. 3-turn buffs are pretty rare and can be very powerful. I don't know that this changes really anything with Bushy and makes him stronger. His A1, it does more damage as it inflicts over time, so that is definitely good. I think that there is some good potential here and some nice synergy. The increased crit rate, even though this one always crits, it's kind of an odd thing to add. I would have thought they'd add increased crit damage, but the increased crit rate will make it easier to put crit rate on his A1, and that makes that a much stronger ability. So this, all in all, it's a good skill. I just don't know that it's super useful. Okay. Our next champion is Hexia. Hexia has 40% chance of placing a decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. Chances increased by 20% for each debuff placed on this champion. Also, damage increases by 7.5% for each debuff on this champion, stacks up to 30% on the A2 Soul Reap. And then Spirit Harvest, last skill, heals increase by 10% for each debuff on this champion. You're seeing a theme here. All the skills get better when you put debuffs on her. To get an idea of what's going on here, A1, we make this 35% chance of placing the decreased defense. We turn that into a 40% chance. This 10% chance to increase that for each debuff already on Hexia gets doubled to a 20% chance. So if you get 3 debuffs on her, she's going to have a 100% chance of placing the decreased defense, assuming you have the accuracy. That's a pretty strong buff. This ability here, this A2, it also, the damage increases by 7.5% for each debuff on this champion, up to 30%. You can see some Gerp Tuck synergies here. That can make this a pretty strong ability. If you can constantly get debuffs on her, she can be pretty strong. Or at least on paper she can. Spirit Harvest, this last one. So the heals are going to increase, not for each dead enemy, but for each debuff on this champion. That's a significant change, which is really nice. So your heal can get a lot stronger. In general, I like this change. I don't play Hexia, so I don't know how strong she is in general, but those things all seem to synergize, which is great. So you pair her with the Gerp Tuck, I think you can see some real positive effects. But she does need debuffs on her, so that's kind of the tricky part. How you figure that out without Gerp Tuck, I'm not sure. Okay, guys, now we're going to go on to Pitiless One. Pitiless One is real simple. His damage is increased for a split arrow and his projectile burst. Oh, actually, there is one little change here. Also, each critical hit fills his champion's turn meter by 5%. That is new on the A1. So as we look at this split arrow, so each of these crit hits is going to give you extra turn meter. That's good. And then the damage is going to go up. And this one here, which already boosts your turn meter, is going to get a damage boost as well. So that's pretty good. It seems like you get him crit rate. He's going to heal himself. He's going to get more turn meter. Just kind of keeping his single target nuke ability in line and upgraded. All right, guys. Next champion's Bone Keeper. Attack deals an extra 50% crit damage on the precision strike. So, and then we have an extra chance. This also fills all turn meters of 15% if this attack kills an enemy. So, you're talking about precision strike deals more crit damage. It already deals some. Now it's going to deal more. Great. And then killing haze, you get an extra hit if this attack is critical. Well, you still get that. Now, if it kills the enemy, all your allies get turn meter boost. So, cool. Sounds good. I mean, they're definitely buffs. I don't use her, but I've heard she can be strong, and that just makes her a little bit stronger. All right, guys, Missionary now. Missionary has a few things happening here. One, all these attacks are scaling from HP. That's huge, huge. That's a really good change. Next, attacks on enemy, provoke chance. So 75% chance of placing provoke debuff for 1 turn becomes 100% chance for 1 turn, and a 50% decrease attack debuff for 2 turns if this champion's current HP is higher than the target's current HP. So stack HP on your Missionary. He's going to provoke a lot better. He'll put decreased attack on. And then Humble the Faithless, decrease the target's turn meter by 50% on this attack. Also, 75% chance of placing heal reduction and of placing decreased speed. So if we go ahead and take a look at his kit, that A1 basically becomes an HP attack. This A2 becomes an HP attack. That 40% chance becomes a 75% chance, and it becomes a 100% chance like this here, but it also adds decrease attack if his HP is higher than the target's HP. And now that he's an HP attack champion, that's going to make a big difference. And then the A3, it will decrease the target's turn meter by 50%. That is new. And then the 75% chance for both of those is the same. So that's I think that's a pretty significant buff on Missionary. Is he still usable? I don't know. We'll have to try it and find out. I haven't used him. I'm not eager to, but definitely the HP scaling makes a big difference. Okay, guys, now we're on to Jotun. Jotun, I'm really excited about this. Basically, the big thing, all his attacks scale from HP. In addition to that, his A3, the damage increased by 50% if it's under an HP per debuff. That's good. It synergizes. And then the cooldown is reduced to 5 turns. So we're looking at the champion. A1 has a chance for decreased defense. A2 has a chance for that HP burn, and that's where the synergy comes in. All these were attack based, now they are HP based, which is great. And then the A3, when we get all the same stuff, except we're adding that the damage is bumped by 50% if the target's under an HP burn. That can be huge. And we're reducing that 6-turn cooldown to 5 turns. That means he's booked down to a 4-turn cooldown. That's helpful. Definitely a good change. All right, guys, we're looking at Tashata here. Basically, the big change here is the chance of placing a weaken debuff increases to 100% on critical hits. Otherwise, it's a 50% chance. And the cooldown for the Spirit Appeasement is reduced to 3 turns. To get an idea of what that means is maximum carnage here. So that 50% chance gets booked up to 75% chance. Oh, I'm sorry. It's a 50% chance, but it becomes 100% chance if it's a critical hit. That's a really nice add, honestly. And then the Spirit Appeasement, this is reduced to a 3-turn cooldown instead of a 4-turn cooldown. And that's really nice as well. In general, it's okay. It's not a huge change to her kit. Weaken is only so good. I don't expect her meta to change at all in the game. All right, sticking with the Barbarian faction, we got Maeve. Maeve has some interesting stuff happening. Her chance to place sleep debuff is increased to 60%. And places a stun debuff for 1 turn on the Slob Knocker skill, regardless of anything else. So to get an idea, we go over here. Maeve, her A1, it is a 40% chance of placing a sleep debuff. It is going to become it's bumped up to a 60% chance. If you book, that's an added 10% for both of those, so that's 50 and 70% respectively. That's a definitely needed thing for her A1 ability, especially with her A2. Her A2 now will place a stun debuff for 1 turn. It will just place a stun debuff. I don't know that you need accuracy for that skill, though you probably need it for the sleep. So you're going to have accuracy. Anyway, if the target is under a sleep, then that becomes a 2-turn stun. So this is a really important change. Makes that useful even if the sleep doesn't land. I think that's a really good change for her. How useful is she in the game? I'm not sure. I still haven't used her. My guess is probably not much more than she was before, but that is definitely a big improvement. Okay, guys, one of my favorite changes in here is Sawai Firstborn. She's going to get a 50% chance of placing the 60% decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. That's big. And then she also gets an increased attack buff and a crit damage buff for 2 turns if this attack kills an enemy. And then to Rampage, the second attack on this one will deal 80% of damage instead of what it was dealing before. And then her last ability has a 75% chance of placing a weaken debuff before she attacks. To get an idea of what that means, it means that she's going to be able to place decreased attack, decreased defense, and weaken. So this A1 ability, we're losing the block buffs part. But what we're adding instead is a decreased defense debuff, and that's way better. So that's going to be really good. Still get the crit rate, still get the increased attack. Instead of a crit rate, this is going to become a crit damage buff. If this attack kills an enemy. So that's still pretty strong. And then you have the A2 here. This goes from 60% to an 80%, the damage inflicted carrying over. So that's a strong improvement. And then the last one, instead of having a 50% chance booked to 75 of landing the weaken, it's going to be a 75% chance booked to 100% chance of landing that weaken debuff. That means you're going to be able to place decreased defense and weaken. That's not a lot of champions can do that, so that's really strong and really good. I think that's a nice buff. Hopefully she will hit hard. I am kind of excited to try her out, see what she can do. All right, guys, one of the epics I'm most excited about is Taurus. He has a 75% chance of placing a 25% weaken debuff, and then he's going to start placing 4 poisons on his Toxic Nova to get an idea. Oh, wait, sorry. So one of the champions I'm most excited about is actually Taurus. His chance to place a weaken debuff is improved to 75%, and he's going to place 4 poisons instead of 3. To get an idea of what that looks like, we can look at him real quick. So on his A2, 50% chance to place the weaken debuff, bumped up to 75. That means when you book it, it's a 100% chance. That's way stronger. And then with this Toxic Nova ability, he's going to place 4 poisons, not just 3. That's also huge. You're going to see a lot of Taurus in dungeons, in clan boss, all over the place. He's going to be getting some work, and he deserves it. All right, the next guy, I'm actually really excited about this. Snorting Thug. I think he's going to be really strong. Steals 2 random buffs from the target. Boom, done. And then Dire Defense, 30% chance of stealing a random buff from the attacker when he's hit. Occurs once a turn, counterattacks if the attacker has no active buffs. That can be really strong, especially in arena. Really good in faction wars. What we're seeing here, attacks one enemy 2 times. Oh, that's not the one. Here you go, Ruckus. So attacks an enemy, ignores target's defense. The stealing 2 random buffs from the target wasn't even on there. So he's just going to steal 2 buffs from the enemy. And then the passive ability, still going to remove that random buff, but it's not going to remove it. It's going to steal it again. So he's going to be the thief of the game. I love this. I think this is great. Definitely going to be somebody we're going to see in arena. Really nice change. Good, I think, potentially meta-altering champion. All right, guys. Another champion that I would love to get to work and haven't yet, but I think these changes might help with that, is Rowan. Rowan, we're going to change her chance to place a heal reduction to 60% on the A1. A2, going to attacks 3 times at random. Each has a 40% chance now of placing the stun debuff. And then the Blade Surge, we're reducing the cooldown to 4 and upgrading the skill chances so that the poisons are 75% chance. So let's look at the kit because that's a little hard to explain. There's a few things going on here. So the A1, 50% chance of placing heal reduction, booked. It's now bumped up to 60% chance, so it gets booked to 70. Not a huge change, but when you're fighting Fire Knight, that can be pretty significant. Scourge, 30% chance of placing the stun debuff, bumped up to 40%. Again, small change, but then booked up to 50%, can still be significant. And then the A3, this is the big one actually. Each has a 50% chance of placing a 5% poison debuff. That is now going to be 75%, booked up to 85%, or I'm sorry, booked up to 90%, mastered to 95%. It's almost guaranteed, but not quite. That's a lot of poisons, though. 4 attacks, 4 poisons. I feel like we're going to see Rowan in a couple different situations. Real interesting champion. I was a little disappointed we didn't put speed as the damage thing for all of these skills because it is part of her A1, and I would have liked to seen that, see what that can do, make it a little bit different. But still, good improvement, solid. Maybe not great, but definitely solid. All right, guys. So we have Hope here is going to be the next champion we're going to look at. Hope has definitely some interesting things in her kit for sure. So 30% chance of placing the block debuffs for 2 turns. Harden gonna make the shield equal to 25% of the champion's HP on all allies for 2 turns, and Holy Storm gets reduced to a 4-turn cooldown. What does that mean? Well, this chance of placing the block debuffs gets doubled from 15 to 30%, so that makes it a thing. And then this shield buff goes from 15% to 25%. That's pretty significant. Definitely a big shield going to be coming from her, assuming you can get enough HP on her. And then very last, this last skill, this ability is going from a 6-turn cooldown to a 4-turn cooldown. When you book it, that means it's a 3-turn cooldown. It makes it a lot more accessible. I think we're going to see Hope in the arena to cleanse and to get some shields and protection out there. She's going to be pretty good, I think. Pretty good. Canon Nest is going to be the next one we're looking at. All right, our next champion we're looking at is Canon Nest. Kind of an interesting change. We got a 50% chance of placing the increased attack buff on the A1, and then this next ability, the Blinding Assault, adds a leech debuff to the kit. So if we look at her and what that means, we have this goes from a 25% chance to a 50% chance. That's literally doubled. That's not too bad. And then this Blinding Assault, we're keeping the accuracy, but we're also adding a leech debuff to it. Just adding it. So that's a real interesting addition. I'm kind of curious where she's going to play as a result of that. Leech can be strong, but mostly in Clan Boss. It can be good in other places, but it's not the greatest of skills. All right, guys, thanks for watching that. Hopefully you are excited about some of these. I'm very excited about a lot of them. I think they did a really good job with many of these epics. I really like where they're going with it. So I'm really looking forward to what they're going to provide us in the future as far as the epic champions goes and like the changes that are happening. I'm really excited to try a bunch of them out. So what I would like to know from you guys, if you can let me know down below, what is the one champion you want to check out the most, that you want to try out the most? Whether you have them or not, something that I can get an idea of champions that I should level up, and so I should get ready so I can do guides on them for you all. So I can try them in different parts of the game, like Clan Boss or Arena or Dungeons, wherever. So let me know that in the comments down below. Always like, subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Hit the notification bell so you know when my next one's out. Check out part 3. I'll have that out in just a little bit. Until next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.